tell about was when I was trying to learn to rope. I didn't have anybody to show me anything. I just had to go to a rodeo and come back and do what it looked like they were doing at the rodeo. And I wound up practicing mistakes for several years before I finally figured out what I was supposed to be doing. Well, I'd built an arena in Otto, and this neighbor guy came over. And he was kind of a know-it-all, so he was watching me, and I was having problems catching, and I was having problems getting my horse to work, and you name it. Well, he started giving me some of his free advice, and I wasn't in a very good mood anyway, so I finally said, well, why don't you get on and rope one and show me how? And he started making excuses, and he said he's afraid he'd foul my horse up. I said, you're not going to hurt her a bit. I said, get on, and just put my rope on the saddle horn and got off. And he crawled on, and this mare I had, boy, she'd leave that box, and if I didn't have a hold of the horn, I tuck my rope under my arm and get a hold of the saddle horn to get started so she wouldn't leave me behind. And I didn't tell him anything about it, and he rode in there and held his rope out like this, and I turned that calf loose, and here that old mare come, and he lacked about 2 inches the first jump out of the box of going off her rear end, and he reached up and got a hold of the saddle horn with both hands and got himself pulled back in the saddle. About that time the calf ducked to the right, and the mare ducked, and he lost his one stirrup, and just about to the point of no return, about to fall off, and the calf hit the fence and came back the other way. Well, then he lost his other stirrup, just about to the point of no return, and by now they're at the end of the arena, and the calf's running in a circle. The mare's right on him. All he's doing is grabbing for saddle horn and reins, and he finally got her stopped, got off, and led her back, gave her to me, took his little boy and went home. And here this was a guy that was telling me how I ought to be doing it. And I don't know how many times, every time I'd see him after that, if there was anybody around, I'd have to tell him about it. He got to where he would walk a mile out of his way to avoid me, but he got married. His first wife passed away, and he got married again. And the last time I saw him, he was telling her about it, so I guess he finally saw some humor in it, but it took him a long time. And then, when I was in high school, Linda's cousin invited me and another guy out to his birthday party. We rode our horses out, and he didn't have much going, but he had some boxing gloves hung up on the wall. So I said, well, let's box. And he goes, no, he said, that's too rough. And so I kept bugging him, and finally said, okay, but we won't really get slug. We'll just tap with the ends of our fingers. Well, I got the gloves on. With him, I'd always wanted to poke him anyway, so the temptation got the best of me, and I started poking him a little harder than his dad thought I ought to, and so his dad, it made his dad mad, but I didn't know he was mad. So I got to poking him. Finally, his dad said, Carl, I'll put those gloves on with you. And boy, he got the gloves on and got me up in a corner and was trying to kill me, but he was so close, he wasn't hurting me. And I finally got him pushed back and caught him right in the mouth. And boy, he just turned glassy-eyed. He started staggering. His false teeth went bouncing across the floor one way, and he went staggering across. And I'd never seen anybody get knocked out before, and I thought I'd killed the poor guy. And boy, you talk about doing some repenting. I was doing it, but he hit the bed, and finally, when he figured out what was going on, he really let me have it. He said, boy, you better watch it there, young man. I'm sure getting sore. And I said, well, we better quit. And then he kind of cooled down. His wife was trying to cool him down, and he finally cooled down a bit and started apologizing for fouling his boy's birthday party up. And then he looked outside, his false teeth busted in two, laying on the floor, and then he did lose it. And his wife was saying, "Oh, we'll get him fixed, we'll get him fixed." He said, "John, you know how much it's going to cost?" He said, "All of $40, and that was back when $40 was about like $400 now, and boy, I was sick. Well, he finally cooled down, and we left. And I seen him a few days later, and I said, "Did you get your teeth fixed?" He said, "Yeah," and I said, "Well, what did it cost?" He says, $4. So that was kind of interesting. And another one story, when I was going to school up at Hyattville, we were out playing baseball. And somebody knocked a big high fly ball, and there were two brothers. One was in the 7th grade and one was in the 8th. They were both Husky guys, and they were having a little trouble getting along anyway. Well, they were both running for this fly ball with their mitts out and looking up at the ball, and they collided. And boy, I mean, they just went down kerwompo, lit on their backs, and got back up with their fists doubled up, slugging each other. Each one of them thought it was the other one's fault. And then, there was a kid that was, I came to me years later, and he wanted me to help him learn to rope, and he really was in it serious. He really was getting after it. And on down the road, we went to a rodeo one time, and his girlfriend was in the camper with him, and I was driving. We were coming back through Billings, and he started knocking on the camper window, telling me he needed to go to the bathroom. So I thought it'd be a good trick to just keep driving. So I just kept driving, went through Billings, and got about to Laurel, and I had to go myself. So I stopped, got in the front of the trailer. No more got in. The pickup started moving. He jumped out and got in the driver's seat and left me in the front of the trailer. And I got a ride from Billings home in the front of the horse trailer. Well, then a year or two later, he was really getting after the bulldog, and there, Cody, and he was having trouble with these hazers. So he asked me if I could haze for him. So I did. And he was winning it about every night, and I wasn't charging him anything. But we pulled into the Dairy Queen after the rodeo one night, and he pulled in behind us. So I told the gal that was taking the orders, I said, "Ask that guy back there in that red pickup how I'd like to buy her supper tonight." So she asked him, and he said, "Well, I guess." We went to order, and then we ordered some more. I knew it was probably a one-time deal, so we were going to get our money's worth. And I kept ordering pretty quick. He'd come out of that red pickup like he'd been shot out of a cannon. And he said, "What all in the hell are you guys ordering?" So we got our money's worth anyway. Now, let me see. Oh, when I was little, my dad was a bishop there in Otto, and there was a saying going around how the bishop kids were the worst ones in town, and I think we were the ones that originated it, because they'd make us go to church, but then they'd let all us kids sit on the same bench. Well, you can imagine what a spiritual experience that was. We'd get to cutting up, and it got so bad one time my dad came down off the stand and took my brother and I up on the stand with us, that one on one side and one on the other. And we were just sitting up there looking everybody right in the eye. It didn't bother us. And I looked up at Dad, his old bald head was about to catch on fire, just smoking. We were having afterwards, my mom cornered me, and boy, I got a tune up like you couldn't believe. we were having a family get together. This was after I was married, and we were having a Sunday afternoon dinner. And I asked my mom. I said, "Hey, Mom, do you remember how we used to get cutting up in church and embarrassing you so bad?" And my mom had a wonderful ability to remember what she wanted to and forget what she wanted to. So she said, "No." My dad piped up. He said, "Oh boy, I sure remember," he said. So anyway, it was interesting. And then let's see. Oh, another one here. This would have been 20, 30 years ago now, but there was a guy living down at Cali. I'll call him Jim. But he got some cows snowed in up on the Pryor Mountains. And he got a guy they'd flown and located the cows. There was 14 head of them altogether, cows and calves. They'd flown and located them, and he got some guy with some snowmobiles to go get them. Well, they get up there, and the snow was too soft to hold the snowmobiles up, so they couldn't get them. So he called me, and I had just got done hunting for about 3 months. I'd had all the mountains and wind and snow I needed, but I didn't want his stock to die, so I went to Otto. I'd had my horses turned out with their shoes pulled off, went and got a couple of them and drove to Cali and picked him up, and we headed up to Warren and unloaded the horses and headed up the mountain. Well, we got about 2/3 of the way up, and it started fogging in on us. And he said, "Boy, Carl, we better go back. I don't like the looks of this." And I said, "Well, BS, we're not going back without them cows." "Oh, we better. This really worries me," blah, blah, blah. So I wound up building him a fire and leaving him there. And I went on up, and I found the cows and spent about an hour stomping a trail out to get them out, and got him out and headed him down the road. And when he heard me coming, boy, he let out a war whoop you could have heard for 10 miles. And jumped on his horse and started, "Yeah, let's get out of here." He panicked out on me is what had happened. So we really brought cows off the Pryor Mountains. We got down there and krilled them. And I took him back home, and he wound up sending me a total of $25 for doing that. I wouldn't have done it for $1,000 if I was doing it for the money. But I got a total of $25 out of him. Well, I thought I could live with it eventually, but then I seen him a couple of years later in Blinton's up there. He said, "When you come to Cali, bring your shoeing tool. I'm going to have you shoe a couple horses for me." And I said, "Okay, I'll be down there Tuesday." He said, "Well, how much you going to charge me?" And I said, "Well, I get $30 to put new shoes on them." "Ooh, that's too much," he said. Well, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I called him a bad word, or 2 or 3, and told him to shoe his own horses. Well, I seen him as I was pulling out. He was carrying a couple of bags of dog food out, one in each arm, and I stopped and rolled my window down. I said, "Boy, you better get them back in there." I said, "They're going to cost you some money." But I don't think he even realized as being smart. But anyway, a few years later, when we started going around giving pony rides and working the parades and whatnot, I was going around and hitting different businesses up. And there was a guy down there at Cali had a construction business, and I knew him quite well, so I went down and hit him up. Well, before this, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before this, I'd had a dealing with him, and he was trying to Jew me down. And I said, "Boy, you've been living to this neighbor too long." I said, "Too close to him for too long." And I guess it kind of hit bottom. But anyway, I went and hit him up for a donation. I did it mostly just to irritate him. He said, "Well, let me go talk to my wife." And I was normally getting $100, $200 on these businesses. He went and talked to his wife, came back hand me a check for $1,000, and he said, "Now don't call me blankety blank anymore." So I promised him I wouldn't do it, but it paid off for me eventually. And there was a story before I started going to year before I went to school in Hyattville. My aunt and uncle had to go somewhere, and my cousin was going to have to do all the chores and the feeding, and some way I got to stay up there with him for a week, and he was tormenting him and goofing off a lot. One Sunday morning, he got me down and took his mom's belt and tied my hands off of one of her dresses and tied my hands behind my back, and then he got me down and tied my feet together with a tea towel. Well, he left me there on the floor tied up while he went down to do the chore or do the milking, and he wasn't gone very long. And boy, I heard that he had hit the steps out there about one time, and he flew in the door and hit the floor about one time getting back to me. He said, "Oh my God, Carl, we got company." There I was tied up in the house, and he was afraid they didn't know me, so he come in and proceeded to untie, and he couldn't. By then I'd strained, and so much I'd pulled the knots so tight he couldn't get them untied. So he tried a time or two to get it untied, and then he just grabbed his pocket knife and cut his mom's belt. Then he tried to untie my feet, and that didn't work, so he took his pocket knife and cut the tea towel. Well, we went out to meet the visitors, and they were some people from from Lovell there, from the state, that come up and they were trying to get enough people rounded up to hold a church up there, and they came up, and there wasn't any telephones back then, so they came up to try to recruit us to go to church, and he was embarrassed, and I was out there, and by then I had the giggles, and they were just as serious as they could be trying to get to go to church, and he was embarrassed, and I was giggling. It was kind of an awkward situation, I'll tell you. And then, when we were younger there, probably around 10 or 12 there at Otto, there was a bell up on the schoolhouse, and we'd get up there like on a Sunday afternoon and ring the bell. Well, there was this gal just down the road trying to get a nap, and that bell she'd just get to sleep, and the bell would start to ring, so she'd jump in her. She had a old green car that hardly run anyway, so she'd jump in that and come up there, and we'd see her coming, and we'd jump down and go hide in the willows, and she'd get out and yell and scream at us for a while, and then she'd go back. Well, we'd crawl back up, ring the bell again, here she'd come again. We were really having a good time, but she finally got her husband on us, and he threatened us enough to put a little fear in. We kind of quit, but we were having a they used to call it Mutual there on Tuesday night at the church, and there was three guys running around with a car they had all souped up, so we conned them into going up and ringing the bell. Well, sure enough, there she coming, that green jalopy that hardly run anyway, and they waited to see which side of the school she was going around. Here they came spinning gravel around the other side, and there was about 20 of us kids lined up out there just laughing to beat heck. She chased them. She wasn't even coming close to staying up with them. I don't know what she was figuring on doing if she caught them, because they could outrun her, they could have outfought her or whatever, but she gave it all she had and finally gave up the chase and come back. And anyway, we were at a family reunion here a few years ago, and several years ago, and she was there by now. She's in a wheelchair, so I went up and asked her if she remembered how those naughty boys used to go up and ring the bell and make her so mad. And she said, "Were you in on that?" And I said, "No." I said, "In fact, I tried stopping them, but I couldn't." She said, "That used to make me so mad. I'd just get to sleep and that bell would ring." And anyway, I never did confess, but it was an interesting deal there too. And then one thing I was gonna say too, that I had two of my best friends die when they were about 20 years old, and now I've been hit with lightning 4 times. We had a loaded semi plow into us down by Cali. We slid off the road, and this loaded semi came and slid off just like we did and plowed right into us. And Camille was probably about a yearling. She was standing up in the seat, and I jumped in, and when I seen the truck coming, I got a hold of her. Tara had Janine. She was going to set her down potty, and she was standing in between the pickup and trailer. And I just got a hold of Camille, and that thing hit us, drug us for 300 and some feet. And I held on to Camille, and we survived it. And when it hit us, Linda, it hit her and Janine hard enough that it knocked them out of the way. So, but that was really a scary deal. And then I've been hit on the head with a fallen tree. I knocked a tree down up in the mountains. I was up there all by myself. Knocked a tree, and it went over and hit another one, and it knocked it down. And I was trying to keep out of the way of both of them, and my lights went out, and another tree had come down and hit me right on top of the head. It was probably about 4 inches in diameter. Broke it off where it hit me. I still got a dent in the top of my head. And it knocked me out. When I woke up, I was laying there in a puddle of blood, and my chainsaw was upside down, still running. I went and loaded up and started home, but boy, you talk about a headache. Then I've had grizzly bear charge me, and so many wrecks with horses over the years. I've ridden probably over 800 head of colts for other people, and had some wrecks. But I just don't understand why I've survived all I have. And I had those 2 friends die when they were 20. I'm afraid it's one of those deals where the Lord or the devil, neither one want me. But we'll just have to wait and see. So that's what I've got for now, Edward. So we can probably come up with some more, but I better not